Some folks carry their wounds on the outside, where the world can see them plain. Others keep theirs buried so deep, only the Lord knows they're there at all. This is a story about two such people, a man the town had given up on, and a woman they said brought bad luck wherever she went. In the dusty hills of Arizona Territory, back in 1884, these two outcasts found each other when nobody else would have them. What happened next changed not just their lives, but the whole town that had mocked them. My grandmother used to say that kindness planted in hard soil grows the strongest roots. I believe she was right. The notice was still damp when Elias Brooks tore it from the church board. His fingers left a smudge across the word, honest, behind him. Two men laughed loud enough for him to hear. Bet you $1 the bank takes his place before first frost. No bet. That's easy money. Elias folded the paper into his coat pocket. He did not turn around. The bell above Dawson's General Store had stopped ringing 3 minutes ago, and the afternoon heat pressed down on the empty street like a hand. Widow seeks honest work. He walked past the hitching post where his mare stood waiting. The animal's ribs showed through her coat now. 3 horses left, one good harvest away from nothing. The men's laughter faded behind him. Elias climbed into the wagon, took up the reins, and did not look back at the town that had stopped seeing him years ago. The road stretched east toward the hills, toward the ranch, toward whatever came next. If you've ever known what it feels like to start over when nobody believes you can, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from today. As the old saying goes, there's no shame in falling, only in staying down. The needle slipped. A bead of blood welled on Mercy Holloway's fingertip. She pressed it against her tongue iron and salt and kept stitching. The collar of her gray dress had frayed at the seam, and thread cost money she did not have. Outside the boarding house window, Dusty Creek stirred awake. A dog barked somewhere. Wagon wheels creaked on dry road. 3 sharp knocks on the door. Mrs. Holloway. The landlady's voice came flat through the wood. Rent's due Friday. Cash money. I ain't running a charity house. Mercy set down her needle. I understand. Mrs. Palmer. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Friday. 4 days. She had 11 cents in the tin box under her bed. By 9 o'clock, she stood outside the millinery shop on Main Street. Her mended dress brushed clean, her hair pinned tight beneath her bonnet. The bell above the door chimed when she entered. Mrs. Whitfield looked up from behind the counter, and something shifted in her face. Mrs. Holloway. Ma'am, I came about the help wanted notice in your window. Mrs. Whitfield's hands stilled on the ribbon she'd been cutting. That position's been filled. The notice is still posted. A pause. The clock on the wall ticked 3 times. We don't need your kind of luck here, Mrs. Holloway. Folks talk. You understand? Mercy understood. She had understood for 2 years now, ever since Thomas fell from that horse 3 months after their wedding. Before that, it was Samuel and the fever. 2 husbands, 2 graves. The arithmetic was simple enough for anyone to do. She nodded once and walked out with her spine straight. The afternoon passed in her room. No supper. The 11 cents stayed in the tin. At dusk, a boy knocked, couldn't have been more than 10, and handed her a folded paper without a word. He ran off before she could ask who sent it. Mercy carried the note to the window, where the last light bled orange through the glass. No signature, no name, just 6 words in a hand that shook. I have work, honest work. And below that, a location, Brooks Ranch, 3 miles east. She knew that name. The whole town knew it. The man who stopped talking. The man they laughed at. Mercy read the note again. Then she looked at her reflection in the darkening window, 32 years old. 2 gold bands on a chain around her neck. Nothing else left to lose. 3 miles east. She could walk that before dawn. The sun had not yet cleared the eastern hills when Mercy reached the wooden gate. She stopped. Her feet ached inside her worn boots. 3 miles of hard-packed dirt road, and the last half-mile uphill. Sweat dampened the back of her dress, where the fabric pressed against her spine. She wiped her forehead with the back of her hand and looked at what remained of Brooks Ranch. The fence leaned drunk in 3 directions. Half the rails had fallen and lay rotting in the yellow grass. Beyond it, a barn with 1 door hanging crooked on a single hinge. A windmill stood motionless against the pale sky, 1 blade missing from its wheel. The house itself small, weathered to gray, sat low beneath a roof patched with sod in 2 places. On the porch, a man sat in a straight-backed chair. He did not rise. Mercy pushed open the gate. The hinges screamed. She walked up the path, her boots crunching on dry weeds that had taken over what must have been a garden once. Closer now. She could see him better. Tall, even sitting. Shoulders broad, but thin beneath a faded cotton shirt. Face like something carved from old wood, all angles and shadows. He watched her approach without expression. She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. Neither spoke. A crow called somewhere behind the barn. The windmill creaked once, though there was no wind. "You're the one who sent the note," she said. He nodded. "I'm Mercy Holloway. I know who you are." His voice came rough, like a tool left too long without use. He stood, then slower than a man his age should, and disappeared through the front door. A moment later he returned with a tin cup and a wooden bucket. He dipped the cup, held it out. She climbed the steps and took it. The water was warm and tasted of iron, but she drank it all. When she lowered the cup, she found him watching her hands. "Your fence needs work," she said. Something moved in his face. Not quite a smile. "That ain't news." "What is news?" "Then what kind of work you offering?" He sat back down. The chair groaned under him. For a long moment he stared out at the land, his land. What was left of it, and Mercy waited. She had learned patience from harder teachers than silence. "Bankman came last month," he said finally. "Name's Pemberton. Says I owe $847. Says I got 55 days to pay, or this place goes to auction." Mercy set the cup on the porch rail. 55 days. That's what he said. She turned and looked at the property with different eyes now. The barn could hold maybe 4 horses, if the roof didn't leak. The corral behind it had 3 animals, 2 mares and a gelding, all of them too thin. The fields beyond lay fallow, choked with thistle. "You got crop in the ground. Some corn, mostly. Ain't been enough rain. How much you figure you can harvest? Maybe enough to feed myself through winter. Maybe not." She looked at the horses again. "Those 3 worth anything. The bay mare might fetch $40 in Phoenix. Rest ain't worth the feed they eat." The numbers ran through her head. $40, 847 owed, 55 days. "You wrote honest work in that note," she said. "What exactly did you have in mind?" He didn't answer right away. His hands rested on his knees, palms down, big hands, calloused, with dirt worked into the cracks, working hands. But the nails were too long, the knuckles too dry. A man who had stopped caring for himself. "I need help," he said. The words came out like they hurt. I need someone to keep this place going long enough to make it through harvest. Someone who knows how to stretch a dollar and ain't afraid of work. And what do I get? Room, board, whatever the harvest brings. We split. Mercy looked at the house. Flour sack curtains hung limp in the windows. The door had a gap at the bottom where the wood had warped. She had lived in worse. Folks will talk, she said. Folks already talk. They'll say you're desperate. His jaw tightened. Ain't I? The crow called again. Closer this time. Mercy's gaze drifted up the hill behind the house. A wooden cross stood there, bleached white by years of sun. No name visible from this distance. But she knew what it marked. You loved her, she said. Not a question. Elias looked at the cross. His throat moved. Childbirth, he said. Baby too. The words hung in the air between them. Mercy touched the chain around her neck, the 2 gold bands hidden beneath her collar. I buried 2 husbands. Mr. Brooks. Town says I'm cursed, says I bring death wherever I go. I heard, and you still sent that note. I did. She let out a breath. The morning sun had crested the hills now, throwing long shadows across the porch. Somewhere in the distance, a meadowlark sang. I ain't asking for charity, she said, and I ain't offering none. But I reckon we might keep each other alive long enough to see spring. Elias stood again. He was taller than she'd realized, a full head above her. His eyes were gray, like weathered fence posts, like ash. There's one more thing, he said. What's that? If we're going to do this, if you're going to live here, work here. He stopped, swallowed. Folks won't just talk. They'll make your life worse than it already is. Let them. There's a way to stop the worst of it. She understood then. The cup on the rail, the water offered first, the careful distance he kept. Even now, you're asking me to marry you. I'm asking if you'd consider it. For practical reasons, nothing more. The wind picked up. The windmill's broken wheel turned a quarter rotation and stopped. Mercy looked at the ranch, the fallen fences, the sagging barn, the grave on the hill. She looked at the man before her, hollowed out by loss, offering what little he had left. 55 days, she said. 55 days. She held out her hand. He took it. His grip was rough and warm. Hers was stronger than he expected. She saw it in the flicker behind his eyes. Then we understand each other. Mr. Brooks, Elias, he said. If we're doing this, you might as well call me Elias. She released his hand. Elias, then. He nodded once. Then he looked past her, toward the road she had walked. You bring anything with you? Just myself. That's enough. But his eyes stayed on the road, and something in his expression shifted a tension she hadn't seen before. Expecting someone? She asked. No. He paused, but Pemberton's got a habit of showing up when he ain't wanted. Mercy turned. A plume of dust rose in the distance. A buggy, coming fast. The circuit preacher arrived on a mule that looked older than the territory itself. Mercy stood on the porch, in her gray dress, the same one she had mended by the boarding house window, the same one she had walked 3 miles in 6 days ago. No flowers, no veil. She had pinned her hair up tight and scrubbed her face with water from the well until her cheeks turned pink. Elias waited beside her. He wore a clean white shirt, buttoned to the throat. She had found it folded in a trunk the night before, still pressed. Still smelling faintly of cedar, a woman's hands had ironed those creases. She did not ask who. Doc Hensley came with his wife, Martha. They stood in the yard below the porch steps. The only witnesses. The rest of the town had not been invited. The rest of the town had not been told. The preacher, Reverend Callow, a thin man with watery eyes and a Bible so worn the binding had come loose, climbed the steps and opened his book. His hands trembled slightly. Palsy. Maybe. Or too much whiskey. Mercy did not care which. "Dearly beloved," he began. The words washed over her. She kept her eyes on the horizon, on the hills turning gold in the noon sun. A hawk circled high overhead. The windmill creaked behind the barn. She could smell dust and horses and something sweet wild sage. Maybe, blooming somewhere out of sight. "Do you, Elias Brooks, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice came steady, stronger than she expected. The preacher turned to her. "And do you?" He paused, glancing at his notes. "Mrs. Holloway. Is it? Holloway was my dead husband's name." Mercy looked at Elias. "It's Brooks now." The preacher blinked. "Well, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." Elias reached into his pocket. He brought out a ring gold, thin as paper, worn smooth by years of another woman's wearing. He held it up, and the sunlight caught the metal, shining through it like it might disappear. "It was my mother's," he said quietly. "It's all I got." Mercy held out her hand. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit loose, but it fit. "Then by the power vested in me," the preacher said, "I now pronounce you man and wife." No kiss. Neither moved toward the other. Doc Hensley cleared his throat. Martha dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief, though Mercy could not tell if she was moved or simply squinting in the sun. And then it was done. They rode into town 3 days later. The wagon seat had been patched with a strip of leather Elias had cut from an old saddle. Mercy sat beside him, her hands folded in her lap. Neither spoke. The road stretched ahead, rutted and dry, and the wheels kicked up dust that coated the hem of her dress. Dusty Creek appeared around a bend, a scatter of buildings along a single main street. The general store, the saloon, the church with its weathered steeple. A handful of people moved along the boardwalks, and as the wagon rolled past, heads turned. Elias guided the horses to the hitching post outside Dawson's general store. He wrapped the reins and climbed down. Mercy followed, landing in the dirt beside him. The store's front window held a display of canned goods and bolts of fabric. A bell chimed when they pushed through the door. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and leather and pickle brine. 3 women stood by the fabric section, Mrs. Whitfield from the millinery, and 2 others Mercy did not know by name. A man behind the counter looked up, his expression shifting from welcome to something else. "Mr. Brooks," he said slowly. "Mrs. He stopped. "Mrs. Brooks," Mercy said. The silence spread. Mrs. Whitfield leaned toward the woman beside her. Her whisper carried across the store like smoke. "Lord have mercy. He actually did it." The other woman, younger, red-haired, with a spray of freckles across her nose, covered her mouth with her hand. "Mercy," she murmured. "That's rich. That woman ain't got none to give." Mercy walked to the fabric section. Her hands moved to a bolt of calico blue with small white flowers. The cotton was cheap but sturdy. Good for curtains, good for tablecloths. She ran her fingers along the edge, feeling the weave behind her. The whispers continued. "Give it 3 months. She'll bury this one too. Poor fool don't know what he married. 2 husbands dead. Now she's got a 3rd. Mercy's knuckles whitened on the fabric. She did not turn. She did not speak. Her face stayed still as stone. Elias appeared at her shoulder. He stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of him through her sleeve. His eyes moved to her hands, to the white of her grip, and then to her face. "We need flour," he said. "And coffee. You pick the fabric." She released the calico. "This one." "How much?" 3 yards. He nodded and walked to the counter. The storekeeper measured the fabric without meeting anyone's eyes. The transaction took less than 2 minutes. Flour, coffee, salt, the calico. Elias paid with coins he counted out slowly, one by one. Outside, a woman pulled her child away as they passed. The boy had been staring at Mercy through the window. His mother's hand clamped on his shoulder, yanking him back. Mercy climbed into the wagon. Elias loaded the supplies and climbed up beside her. He took the reins. The horses pulled forward, and the town began to slide past. Neither spoke. The road stretched ahead. The dust rose. The sun hung white and hot in the afternoon sky. When they were a mile out, Elias cleared his throat. "I heard him too." Mercy looked straight ahead. "I know you did. Don't let it. I ain't letting it do anything." Her voice came flat. "I just remember every face, every word. That's all." He did not reply. The wagon creaked on. When they reached the ranch, Mercy helped unload the supplies. She carried the calico inside and set it on the kitchen table. The house smelled of dust and old wood and something faintly sour milk gone bad. Maybe. Or vegetables left too long. She opened the windows. She swept the floor. She found the account books in a drawer of Elias's desk and carried them to the table. Night came. Elias knocked on the doorframe of the spare room. "You need anything?" "No." He hesitated. "Good night, then." "Good night." His footsteps retreated down the hall. The door to his room closed softly. Mercy sat at the table with the books spread before her. The kerosene lamp burned low, casting yellow light across columns of numbers, debts, payments, interest. The figures swam before her eyes, but she kept reading. $847. 52 days now. She turned the page, another column, another debt, a note in cramped handwriting. Pemberton 12% compounded monthly, 12% monthly. That was robbery wrapped in legal paper. The lamp guttered. The oil was running low. Mercy kept reading. In the other room, she heard Elias moving the creak of bed springs, the rasp of a match. He was awake too, listening, maybe, waiting. She found another paper tucked between the pages of the ledger, a letter, dated 6 months earlier, from a buyer in Phoenix named J. Hartley, offering $45 per head for quality horses. Elias had never replied. Mercy smoothed the letter flat. She read it twice. Then she reached for the pen. 16 days. Mercy counted them by the marks she scratched into the doorframe of her room each morning. Before the sun came up, before Elias stirred in the room down the hall. 16 days of coffee at dawn. 16 days of separate tasks, him in the fields, her in the house. 16 suppers eaten across a table neither had chosen, in a silence that had grown comfortable without either of them noticing when it happened. This morning, she woke before first light. The floorboards creaked under her bare feet as she crossed to the kitchen. The stove was cold. She fed it kindling and struck a match, watching the flame catch and spread. The coffee pot sat where she had left it the night before tin, dented on one side, blackened from years of use. She filled it from the bucket by the door and set it on the burner. By the time Elias appeared in the doorway, The kitchen smelled of wood smoke and brewing coffee. He did not say good morning. Neither did she. That had stopped being necessary around day 4. She poured 2 cups. He took his and sat at the table. She sat across from him. The silence held outside. The sky turned from black to gray, to the pale yellow of late summer. A rooster crowed somewhere not theirs. They had no chickens from a farm down the valley. The coffee steamed between them. "Fence in the north pasture," Elias said finally. "I'll be out there today." "I saw it. Posts are rotted through in 3 places." He nodded. "Got to dig new ones. Ground's hard. I'll bring water at noon." He finished his coffee and stood. His boots scraped on the floor as he walked to the door. He paused there, one hand on the frame, and turned back. "There's a pump organ in the front room," he said. "Under the sheet." Mercy looked toward the parlor. A shape hulked in the corner, draped in canvas that had gone gray with dust. "Clara played it," Elias said. "I ain't touched it since." He walked out before she could reply. The pump organ was a Mason and Hamlin, built sometime in the 60s by the look of it. Mercy lifted the canvas and coughed as dust rose in a cloud. The wood was dark walnut, carved with scrollwork along the edges. The keys had yellowed, but none were cracked. She pressed one. No sound. The bellows needed pumping. She covered it again and went back to the kitchen. The pantry took most of the morning. She pulled everything out: jars of beans, gone soft, flour with weevils crawling through it, salt that had clumped into a solid brick. She threw away what could not be saved and reorganized what could. By the time she finished, sweat had soaked through the back of her dress and her arms ached from lifting. The root cellar was worse. She found potatoes sprouting pale tendrils in the dark, carrots gone to mush, a crock of pickles with mold floating on top. The smell made her eyes water. She carried everything out in buckets and dumped it behind the barn where the hogs would have eaten it, if they'd had hogs, at noon. She filled a canteen and walked to the north pasture. Elias was waist-deep in a hole, digging. Sweat darkened his shirt in a V down his back. The shovel bit into the hard-packed earth with a sound like breaking bones. He did not look up when she approached. She set the canteen on a fence post. Water. He climbed out of the hole. His hands were raw. The skin across his palms cracked and bleeding in 2 places. He drank without stopping, water running down his chin and dripping onto his chest. "Ground's harder than I thought," he said when he finished. "Always is." She looked at the fence line. 3 sections down, rails scattered in the yellow grass. The posts that remained leaned at angles that would not hold through another storm. "Show me how," she said. He looked at her. Something passed behind his eyes: surprise, maybe, or doubt. Then he handed her a pair of leather gloves from his back pocket. "Dig straight down, 2 feet minimum. Pack the dirt tight when you set the post." She took the gloves. They were too big for her hands, but she pulled them on anyway. Over the next 2 days, she set 2 posts. The first one took her most of a morning. The hole Elias had started was too shallow. She had to deepen it another foot, scraping at the hard ground with a shovel that had seen better decades. Her back screamed. Her shoulders burned. Sweat stung her eyes, and she wiped it away with her forearm, leaving streaks of dirt across her face. The second post went faster. She was learning the rhythm of it. Dig. Lever. Dump. Dig. Lever. Dump. The soil fought her, but she fought back. By late afternoon of the second day, both posts stood straight. Wire stretched between them, catching the last of the daylight. Her hands had blistered through the gloves, broken, and bled through the cloth she'd wrapped around her palms. She did not stop. She heard the wagon before she saw it. Elias pulled up at the edge of the pasture. He sat there for a long moment, not moving, just looking at the fence, at the posts standing true, at the wire she had strung herself. Then he climbed down and walked toward her. She stood with her back to him, tightening a wire that had come loose. Her hands shook. The pliers slipped. She gripped them harder. "Mercy!" She did not turn. His hand touched her shoulder. "Light. Careful. Let me see your hands." She turned then. She held them out, palms up. The cloth wrapping had soaked through with blood in 2 places. Blisters covered her fingers, some of them torn open, the raw skin beneath shining wet. Elias said nothing. He took her hands in his gently, like he was holding something that might break, and turned them over. His thumbs traced the edges of the blisters. His calluses rasped against her torn skin. "Wait here." He walked to the barn, came back with a tin of horse liniment and a clean rag. "This is all we got," he said. "It'll sting." "I know." He dipped the rag in the liniment. The smell hit her camphor and something bitter, something medicinal. He pressed it to her palm. The sting cut through her like a blade. She sucked air through her teeth but did not pull away. He worked in silence, cleaned each blister, spread the salve across her skin. Wrapped both hands in fresh cloth, he tore from the hem of his own shirt. When he finished, he did not let go. They stood there in the fading light, her hands in his, neither speaking. The wind picked up. The barbed wire hummed. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly. "Neither did you." He released her hands, stepped back. "Found something on the table this morning," he said. "A letter, addressed to Phoenix." Mercy met his eyes. "The buyer, Hartley. His offer might still stand. I wrote to ask. You had no right. You weren't going to do it." His jaw tightened. "Nobody buys horses from a sand folks laugh at." "They ain't buying from you," she said. "They're buying horses. There's a difference." He stared at her. The muscle in his cheek twitched. "You always this stubborn. I'm still alive. Ain't I that takes stubbornness enough?" The silence stretched. A coyote called somewhere in the distance, one long note, then another. Elias turned and walked toward the house. At the porch steps, he paused, bent down, picked something from the ground. When Mercy came inside an hour later, there was a jar on the kitchen table. Inside it, a handful of wildflowers, purple and yellow and white. No note, no explanation. She touched one of the petals with her bandaged finger. In the other room, the floorboards creaked. Elias moving in his chair. The scratch of a pen on paper. He was writing to Phoenix. The reply came 9 days later. A boy on horseback brought it at noon. The same boy who had delivered Elias's note to the boarding house. A lifetime ago. Mercy took the letter and tipped him a penny she could not spare. She did not open it. She waited on the porch until she saw Elias coming up from the south field, his silhouette dark against the afternoon sun. He saw the letter in her hand. His steps slowed. "From Phoenix. Postmark says so." He climbed the steps, took the letter. His hands were steady as he broke the seal. He read it twice. Then he looked up at her, and something in his face had changed, something she had not seen there before. "Hartley's coming," he said. "Wants to see the horses himself. Says if they're sound, he'll pay $50 each. $50. 3 horses, 150. When? Mercy asked. Elias looked at the letter again. He'll be here in 4 days. 4 days. But as she turned to go inside, she heard hoofbeats on the road. Different from the boy's horse, heavier, steadier. She turned back. A black buggy was coming up the drive, polished, expensive. The banker. Horace Pemberton climbed down from the buggy like a man stepping into his own parlor. He wore a black coat despite the heat, buttoned tight across a stomach that strained the fabric. His bowler hat sat perfectly level on his head. His boots shone with a polish that had no business on a ranch road. He smiled as he walked toward the porch, and that smile made Mercy's skin prickle. Mr. Brooks. Pemberton stopped at the bottom of the steps. His eyes moved past Mercy as if she were part of the railing. I trust I'm not interrupting. Elias stood with the letter from Phoenix still in his hand. Didn't expect you. Pemberton. Just a friendly visit, checking on my investment. You might say. The smile widened. 35 days. Brooks, the bank's been patient. Mercy stepped forward. Won't you come inside? Mr. Pemberton, I just made coffee. The banker's eyes flicked to her for the first time. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, maybe, or the beginning of amusement. Mrs. Holloway, is it? Brooks, she said. Mrs. Brooks, and the coffee's getting cold. She turned and walked into the house without waiting for a reply. The good china had belonged to Clara. Mercy had found it in a cabinet in the corner of the kitchen, wrapped in cloth that had yellowed with age, blue willow pattern, delicate handles, the kind of dishes a woman saved for special occasions and never used enough. She set 3 cups on the table, poured the coffee. The liquid steamed in the afternoon light that slanted through the window. Pemberton sat in the chair closest to the door, positioned. She noticed, so he could see both of them at once. His hat rested on his knee. His silver pocket watch caught the light when he pulled it from his vest, checked the time, and tucked it away again. Fine china, he said. Surprising, given the circumstances. It was my husband's first wife's, Mercy said. She had good taste. Elias sat across from the banker. His coffee sat untouched before him. His jaw was set in a way Mercy had come to recognize, the way he looked when he was holding words back. Pemberton sipped his coffee and set the cup down with a small click. Well, to business, then. He reached into his coat and withdrew a folded paper. $847. Mr. Brooks. Due in full in 35 days. The board has been discussing your account. Discussing what? Whether to proceed with foreclosure immediately or wait for the deadline. Pemberton's smile thinned. Some of us feel that waiting is optimistic. Mercy picked up her cup. The heat seeped through the porcelain into her palms. 12% interest. Compounded monthly. That's what the note says. Pemberton's head turned toward her. I beg your pardon. The promissory note, I read it. 12%. Compounded monthly. That's 3 points above the territorial standard. The banker's smile flickered. I wasn't aware you had experience in financial matters. Mrs. Brooks, my second husband owed money when he died, Mercy said. The bank took everything except what I hid. I learned. Silence. The clock on the mantel ticked. Outside, one of the horses whinnied in the corral. Pemberton set down his coffee cup. This is between me and your husband. Mrs. Brooks, my husband and I share everything. Mr. Pemberton, including debts and opinions. She let the words settle. Pemberton's fingers tightened on his hat brim. She watched his knuckles whiten, then relax. "Mr. Brooks." The banker turned deliberately away from her. "Perhaps we could speak privately." Elias picked up his coffee, sipped it, set it down. "Seems like she's doing fine. I got nothing to add." Pemberton's jaw tightened. The muscle in his cheek pulsed once, twice. Mercy reached for the letter from Phoenix, still lying on the table where Elias had set it. "We've had some correspondence with a buyer in Phoenix. A Mr. Hartley. He's interested in our horses." "Horses?" Pemberton's voice carried an edge now. "You have 3 animals in that corral. Mrs. Brooks. Barely worth the feed they eat. Mr. Hartley disagrees. He's offered $50 per head, pending inspection. He'll be here in 4 days." She watched the number land. 50 times 3, 150. Pemberton's smile had gone stiff. "That's not even a quarter of what you owe." "No, but it's a start." Mercy folded her hands on the table. "We propose a partial payment, 150 from the horse sale, another 200 from the autumn stock auction in Tucson. We'll consign what we can spare. The remainder to be paid from winter work and the spring harvest. The board will accept whatever you recommend. Mr. Pemberton, we both know that." Pemberton's eyes narrowed. He pulled out his pocket watch again, checked it, put it away. The gesture was sharp now, irritated. "You're asking me to extend terms on a failing property. I'm asking you to let us pay what we owe." Mercy leaned forward slightly. "Or you can foreclose, take the land, auction it off. But we both know what ranch land sells for in a drought year. You'll get maybe $400, half what's owed. The board won't like that." The clock ticked. Pemberton's breath bounced through his nose, slow and controlled. "You're asking for a restructured note. I'm offering you a path to full repayment. That's more than you had when you drove up here." Pemberton looked at Elias. "And you agree to these terms?" Elias met his eyes. "My wife speaks for both of us." The words hung in the air. Mercy felt something shift in her chest. A knot she hadn't known was there, loosening. Pemberton stood. He put on his hat, adjusting the brim with precise movements. His smile had returned, but it had changed. Thinner, harder. "I'll take your proposal to the board," he said. "No promises." "We're not asking for promises," Mercy said. "Just fairness." The banker's eyes moved across her face. Whatever he saw there, he did not comment on it. "Good day, Mrs. Brooks, Mr. Brooks." He walked out. The door closed behind him. A moment later, the buggy wheels crunched on the drive, and the sound faded into the distance. Elias sat motionless at the table. Mercy stayed where she was, her hands still folded, her coffee growing cold. The clock ticked. The light through the window shifted as a cloud passed over the sun. "Where'd you learn to do that?" She looked up. He was watching her with an expression she could not read, something between wariness and wonder. "Do what?" "Talk like that. Handle a man like Pemberton." Mercy unfolded her hands. The blisters from the fence work had scabbed over, but they still pulled when she moved her fingers. "I told you. My second husband owed money. When he died, the banker came to collect. I was 26 years old, alone, and I had 3 days to save what I could. What did you save?" "Enough to start over. Not much else." Elias was quiet for a moment. Then he reached across the table and touched her hand, just his fingertips against her knuckles. Light as a breath. "Thank you." She did not pull away. "Don't thank me yet. Pemberton's going to come back. And next time, He won't underestimate us. Let him come. The cloud passed. Sunlight flooded the kitchen again, catching the blue willow pattern on the china, making it glow. Mercy looked at her husband, this man she had known for barely a month. This stranger, who had become something else without either of them naming it. His gray eyes held hers, steady, clear. "The horses," she said. "Hartley's coming in 4 days. We need to get them ready. I know. They're thin. We need to grain them up, make them look worth $50. I know." She stood. Her chair scraped against the floor. "Then we'd better start." 3 days passed. The horses looked better. Not good, but better. Mercy had found half a bag of oats buried in the back corner of the barn. Behind rusted tools and rotted leather, she mixed it with the hay, spreading the richer feed across the days so the animals' coats would begin to shine without bloating their bellies. Elias brushed them each morning and evening. The bay mare, the best of the three, had a way of leaning into the brush, her eyes half closed, her breath coming slow and easy. On the 4th morning, Mercy woke to the sound of hoofbeats. She was at the window before she was fully awake. A rider was coming up the road, not a buggy this time, but a single man on a chestnut horse. He wore a wide-brimmed hat and a coat the color of dust. Hartley. She pulled on her dress and hurried to the porch. Elias was already there, standing at the rail. He did not look at her when she came out. His eyes were fixed on the rider. "That's him," he said quietly. The rider drew closer. 100 yards, 50, and then Mercy saw the second plume of dust behind him. Another rider, following at a distance, watching. The second rider turned back before reaching the gate. Mercy watched the dust plume retreat toward town. Someone curious, maybe, or someone with nothing better to do than watch other people's business. She filed the image away and turned her attention to the man now dismounting in their yard. Hartley was older than she expected. 50, maybe 55, sun-weathered face, hands that knew rope and leather. He tied his horse to the post and walked toward the porch with the rolling gait of a man who spent more time in the saddle than out of it. "Mr. Brooks." He removed his hat. Gray hair, thinning at the crown. "J. Hartley. We corresponded about your horses." Elias stepped down from the porch. "You made good time." "Roads were clear enough." Hartley's eyes moved to Mercy. He touched the brim of his hat. "Ma'am, Mr. Hartley, would you like some water before you inspect the animals?" "Appreciate that, but I'd rather see what I'm buying first." The inspection took the better part of an hour. Hartley examined each horse with hands that knew their work, running fingers along legs, checking teeth, lifting hooves. He found the bay mare sound. The gelding had a slight hitch in his left foreleg, old injury, but nothing that would worsen. The second mare was thin but healthy. 45 for the bay, Hartley said finally. 35 each for the other two. That's 115. Cash. Less than Mercy had hoped. More than she had feared. Elias looked at her. She nodded once. Done. Hartley counted out the money in gold coins, eagles and half-eagles. Heavy in Elias's palm, he shook hands with both of them and led the horses away, roping them behind his own mount. At the gate, he turned back. Drought's hitting everyone hard. You folks seem like good people. I hope you make it through. He rode out. The dust settled behind him. $115, $732 still owed. 31 days remaining. 3 weeks without rain. The creek that fed the ranch had shrunk to a trickle, then to a muddy seep. then to nothing but cracked earth and stones. Mercy walked its bed each morning, looking for water that was not there. Her boots left prints in the dry mud. Her shadow stretched long and thin across the ground. The corn was dying. She could see it from the porch rows of stalks turning yellow at the edges, curling inward, thirsting for moisture that would not come. Elias worked the fields from dawn to dusk, hauling water from the well bucket by bucket, but the well was dropping too. Each day the rope went deeper. Each day the bucket came up lighter. Word came from town. 5 ranches facing foreclosure. The bank was calling in loans across the valley. Even the big spreads were hurting cattle dying, crops failing, families packing what they could carry and heading west. And in the whispers that reached them, carried by Doc Hensley when he came to check on a cough Elias couldn't shake. Carried by the boy who delivered mail, another story spread. The cursed widow. The drought had started when she came. Everyone knew it. Everyone said it. The woman who buried 2 husbands had brought her bad luck to the whole valley. And now they were all paying for it. She was carrying water from the well when her boot caught on a root. The bucket flew from her hands. She went down hard, her palms slapping into the mud at the edge of the trough. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Mud splashed up her arms, her chest, her face. She lay there. The sun beat down on her back. The mud soaked through her dress, cold and thick against her skin. She could taste it, grit and iron and something sour, like rotting leaves. Her hands sank into the muck, fingers disappearing up to the knuckles. She did not get up. For a long moment she stayed there, face down in the dirt, breathing mud-heavy air. This is what they think of me. This is where they believe I belong. The thought should have made her angry. Instead, it made her tired. So tired she could close her eyes right here and let the earth have her. Footsteps, running. Mercy! Elias's hands closed around her shoulders. He pulled her up, turned her over. Her face was streaked with mud. Her hair had come loose from its pins, hanging in wet ropes around her cheeks. She looked at him and saw her own reflection in his eyes, filthy, broken, ridiculous. A sound escaped her throat. Not a laugh, not a sob, something between. "I fell," she said. "I saw." He did not let go. His hands stayed on her shoulders, steadying her. Mud transferred from her dress to his shirt. Neither of them moved to wipe it away. "I heard what they're saying," he said quietly. "About you. About the drought. It's just talk. It's lies." She looked away. "Maybe it ain't. Maybe I do bring bad luck. Maybe everything I touch turns to dust and mud, and nothing." His grip tightened. "Look at me." She did not. "Mercy, look at me." She raised her eyes. His face was close to hers, closer than it had ever been. She could see the lines around his mouth, the gray in his stubble, the way his pupils had widened in the shade. "I don't believe in curses," he said. "I believe in drought and hard luck and banks that cheat honest people. But I don't believe you brought this. I won't believe it." Her throat tightened. "How can you be sure?" "Because I know what it's like to be blamed for things you can't control. I know what it's like to have a whole town look at you like you're already dead." He released her shoulders, stepped back. The mud on his shirt was drying already, cracking in the heat. "Come inside," he said. "Clean up. We'll figure out the rest." That night, they sat on the porch. No lamp. They were saving oil now. Just the stars overhead and the darkness pressing in from the hills. Mercy had wrapped herself in a quilt she'd found in the trunk with the Clara's Things patchwork squares in faded blues and yellows. Elias had not objected when she took it. Neither spoke for a long time. Clara used to say, "I talked too much," Elias said finally. His voice came soft in the darkness. "Can you imagine me?" Mercy pulled the quilt tighter. "What happened?" "She died." The words fell like stones into still water. "Baby, too. He never took a breath. I held him and waited, and he never did." The silence stretched. "And then I stopped talking," Elias said. "Figured nobody was listening anyhow. Not people. Not even the Lord himself." Mercy's hand found his in the darkness. His fingers curled around hers. Rough, warm. "My first husband, he talked all the time," she said. "Plans, dreams, promises. Then he was gone, and all them words didn't mean nothing." "You miss him?" "I miss believing words meant something." The stars wheeled overhead. A coyote called somewhere in the distance. "Maybe they still can," Elias said. She did not answer, but she did not let go of his hand. They sat there until the sky began to lighten in the east. Her head had drifted to his shoulder sometime in the small hours. His arm had found its way around her. Neither mentioned it. And when Mercy finally rose to go inside, she smelled smoke, faint, distant, but unmistakable, coming from the direction of town. The smoke thickened as they drove toward town. Elias had the horses at a run, the wagon bouncing over ruts and stones. Mercy gripped the seat with both hands, her knuckles white against the worn wood. The orange glow on the horizon had grown since they first saw it, not a small fire, not a brush pile or a cook stove. Something big was burning. "Could be the saloon," Elias said. His voice was tight. "Could be." But she knew it was not. The glow was coming from the wrong part of town, east of Main Street, where the warehouses stood, where the grain was stored. They crested the ridge above Dusty Creek and saw it clearly for the first time. The warehouse, the big one, the one that held half the valley's autumn stores, was wrapped in flame. Fire licked from the windows and crawled across the roof. Sparks rose into the black sky like stars trying to return home. Elias pulled the horses to a stop. They sat there, side by side, watching the town burn. "Ain't none of them ever helped us," he said quietly. Mercy did not answer. "They laughed at me, called you cursed, crossed the street when you walked by." His hands tightened on the reins. "We could stay home. Nobody would expect us to be there." She looked at him. The firelight caught his face, casting shadows across the angles of his jaw, the hollows of his cheeks. His gray eyes reflected the flames. "Is that what you want?" she asked. He did not answer. The fire roared in the distance, shouts carried on the wind, thin, desperate. "No," he said finally. "That ain't what I want." He shook the reins. The horses lurched forward. They reached the edge of town as the church bell began to ring. The sound cut through the night, not the measured toll of Sunday morning, but a wild, urgent clanging. People were pouring into the streets in nightclothes and boots, carrying buckets, blankets, anything that could hold water or beat back flame. Elias guided the wagon to the well at the center of town. Mercy jumped down before the wheels stopped turning. She grabbed 2 buckets from the wagon bed and ran toward the line that was forming a chain of bodies, stretching from the well to the warehouse, passing water hand to hand. She fell in beside a man she did not know. He glanced at her face, then looked away, did not question why she was there. The bucket came, heavy, sloshing. She passed it to the next pair of hands and reached for another. The rhythm took hold. Bucket. Pass. Reach. Bucket. Pass. Reach. Her arms burned. Her shoulders screamed. Water splashed her dress, soaked through to her skin. The heat from the fire pressed against her face like a hand. She kept working. An hour passed, maybe 2. The line shifted and changed as people tired and others took their places. Mercy did not stop. Her hands had blistered again, the old wounds from the fence reopening. But she did not look at them. She did not think about them. Bucket. Pass. Reach. Someone pressed a dipper of water into her hands. She drank without pausing, water running down her chin, then passed the dipper back and reached for the next bucket. The warehouse groaned. A section of roof collapsed inward, sending a geyser of sparks into the sky. Someone screamed. The line faltered. Keep moving. A voice Doc Hensley. Somewhere to her left. Don't stop now. The line reformed. The buckets kept coming. Somewhere in the chaos. Mercy glimpsed Pemberton. The banker stood on the line like everyone else, his fine coat stripped off and thrown in the dirt, his white shirt soaked with sweat and water. His face was red from the heat. His hands moved with the same desperate rhythm as everyone else's bucket. Pass. Reach. He saw her looking. Their eyes met across the chain of bodies. He did not smile. He did not sneer. He just kept passing buckets. Dawn broke gray and smoky over Dusty Creek. The fire was out. The warehouse still stood most of it, though one corner had collapsed into a pile of blackened beams and ash. Smoke rose from the ruins in lazy spirals. The smell hung over everything: charred wood, burnt grain, wet ash. Mercy sat on the edge of the water trough, her hands hanging between her knees. The blisters had broken, blood mixed with soot on her palms. She did not have the strength to wipe it away. Around her, the town was slowly coming back to itself. Men moved through the wreckage, pulling out what could be saved. Women gathered in small groups, talking in low voices. Children stood at the edges, wide-eyed and silent. Elias appeared beside her. His face was black with soot. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. He held out a tin cup. Water. She took it, drank. The water tasted like smoke. How bad? She asked. Half the grain's gone, maybe more. He sat down beside her. Enough to make winter hard for everyone. How did it start? Watchman. Name's Cooley. He was drunk, knocked over a lantern, and passed out before he could put it out. Elias's voice was flat. They found him outside, crawling away, said he didn't remember anything. Mercy closed her eyes, all those words, all that blame. And in the end, it was a drunk man and a careless flame. Mrs. Brooks. She opened her eyes. Mrs. Whitfield stood before her, the millinery owner's wife, the woman who had refused her work, who had told her that folks talk. Her face was pale beneath the soot, her hands twisted together in front of her. I wanted to say. She stopped, swallowed. I saw you, on the line, all night. Mercy said nothing. I was wrong, Mrs. Whitfield said. The words came out rough, like they cost something. About what I said. About you bringing bad luck. I was wrong. Still Mercy did not speak. She watched the woman's face, the shame there, the struggle. I don't expect you to forgive me, Mrs. Whitfield said. I just wanted you to know. She turned and walked away before Mercy could respond. A moment later, another figure approached. The red-haired woman from the general store, the one who had whispered that mercy had no mercy to give. She stopped a few feet away, not quite meeting Mercy's eyes. "My boy," she said quietly, "the one I pulled away from the window that day. He asked me why you came to help. I didn't have an answer for him." Mercy looked at her. The woman's dress was soaked and torn. Soot streaked her freckled face. "Tell him neighbors help neighbors," Mercy said. "Even when it's hard." The woman nodded once, walked away. The town elder found them an hour later. His name was Josiah Trent, a white-haired man with a beard like Spanish moss and hands that trembled with age. He had been on the bucket line, too. Mercy had seen him, passing water with the rest, not asking for special treatment. "Mr. Brooks," he said. "Mrs. Brooks, might I have a word?" Elias stood. Mercy rose beside him, her legs unsteady beneath her. "The town owes you thanks," Trent said. "You didn't have to come, after how folks treated you." He shook his head. "You didn't have to. We're neighbors," Elias said. "Are you?" Trent's eyes were sharp despite his age. "Some people didn't think so. Some people thought you were something else entirely." Mercy felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "What do you want, Mr. Trent?" The old man studied her face. "I want to know why. Why did you come? Why did you work all night beside people who treated you like dirt?" She opened her mouth to answer, but Elias spoke first. "Because my wife reminded me what neighbors are for." Trent looked at him, at her, at the ruined warehouse behind them. "Half the valley's winter stores are gone," he said. "The families that depended on that grain are going to suffer. Some of them might not make it through." "I know," Mercy said. "We've got some harvest left," Elias said. "Not much. Corn, mostly. What survived the drought." He paused. "It's yours if you need it." Trent's eyes widened. "You're offering your crop after everything." "It ain't much," Mercy said, "but it's what we have." The old man was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, softer, rougher. "I remember your father, Mr. Brooks. Good man, hard worker. Never had a bad word for anyone." He looked at Mercy. "And I knew your first husband, Mrs. Brooks, Samuel Holloway. He bought seed from my store the spring before he passed. He spoke highly of you." Mercy's throat tightened. She had not heard Samuel's name spoken aloud in years. "This town forgot something," Trent said. "We forgot that neighbors help neighbors, even when it's hard, even when it costs." He held out his hand. "Thank you, both of you." Elias shook it. Then Mercy. They drove home as the sun climbed toward noon. The road stretched before them, dusty and familiar. Mercy leaned against Elias's shoulder, too tired to sit upright. Her eyes kept closing. Her whole body ached. Arms, legs, back, hands, everything. "You need to sleep," Elias said. "So do you." "I will. When we get home." Home. The words settled over her like the quilt she'd wrapped herself in the night before. The ranch appeared over the last ridge, the house, the barn, the fence she had mended with her own hands. It looked different now, smaller, maybe, or larger. She could not tell which. Elias pulled the horses to a stop at the gate. They sat there, side by side, not speaking. 5 days until the payment's due. She said finally, "I know. We just gave away most of what we had left. I know." She turned to look at him. His face was still black with soot. His eyes were red-rimmed from smoke and exhaustion, but something in his expression had changed. something she had not seen before. "Worth it," he said. She did not argue. He shook the reins, and the wagon rolled forward through the gate. But as they passed the fence line, Mercy saw something that made her sit up straight. A buggy, parked beside the barn, Pemberton's buggy. The banker himself stood on their porch, hat in hand, waiting. Pemberton did not smile when they climbed down from the wagon. He stood on the porch with his hat in his hands, turning it slowly by the brim. His fine coat was gone, lost in the fire. Maybe, or ruined beyond saving. He wore a plain brown jacket now, the kind any working man might own. Soot still streaked his collar. "Mr. Brooks," he said. "Mrs. Brooks." Elias stopped at the bottom of the steps. Mercy stood beside him. Neither spoke. "I saw you," Pemberton said. "On the line, all night." He looked down at his hat, then back up. "My wife's family had grain in that warehouse, her father's crop. 3 generations of seed stock." "I'm sorry," Mercy said. "Don't be." Pemberton's voice was quiet. "You saved what you could. Same as everyone else." He paused. "More than some." The silence stretched. A crow called from the barn roof. "The board met this morning," Pemberton said, "before the fire was even out. We discussed your account." Elias's jaw tightened. "And the terms you proposed, partial payment, restructured note." Pemberton cleared his throat. "The board has agreed. $400 remaining. Payable over 2 years. 6% interest. Simple, not compounded." Mercy felt her knees weaken. She put a hand on the porch rail to steady herself. 6%. Elias repeated. "The territorial standard." Pemberton put his hat back on, adjusted the brim. "I'll have the papers drawn up by week's end. You can sign them when you're ready." He walked down the steps, past them, toward his buggy. At the wheel, he stopped. "Mrs. Brooks." She turned. "That thing you said, about fairness." He did not look at her. "I've been thinking about it." He climbed into the buggy and drove away without another word. 5 weeks later, the ranch had changed. Mercy stood at the kitchen window, watching the road. The October light fell golden across the land, catching the tops of the hills and turning them amber. The corn had been harvested, what remained of it, after they gave half to the town, and the fields lay empty now. Waiting for spring, the fence line ran straight and true along the pasture. Every post stood solid. Every wire held tight. The barn door hung level on new hinges Elias had forged himself at the blacksmith's shop in town. The blacksmith had let him use the forge for free. Said it was the least he could do. The garden she had cleared and turned was ready for planting. Come spring, there would be beans, squash, tomatoes, maybe some flowers too, if there was room. Behind her, the stove ticked as it cooled. She had baked bread this morning, the first loaf from the new flour Elias had bought in town. The smell still hung in the air, warm and yeasty, mixing with the coffee she had brewed an hour ago. A wagon appeared on the road. Mercy wiped her hands on her apron and stepped onto the porch. Doc Hensley pulled up at the gate, his wife Martha beside him on the seat. He tipped his hat as he climbed down. "Mrs. Brooks, the missus wanted to bring you something." Martha came forward, carrying a mason jar filled with something dark and rich. Apple butter. Mercy could see the spices floating in it, cinnamon, cloves. "From our trees," Martha said. "We had more than we could use this year." Mercy took the jar. The glass was still warm from Martha's hands. "Thank you. It ain't much." Martha's eyes moved across the ranch, the mended fence. the swept porch, the calico curtains hanging clean in the windows. "You've done a lot with the place. We're getting by." They stayed for coffee, sat on the porch, and talked about the weather, the harvest, the families that had decided to stay despite the hard year when they left. Martha pressed Mercy's hand and held it for a long moment. "You're good for him," she said quietly. "We can all see it." Elias returned from the north pasture as the sun dropped toward the hills. He had been checking the fence line, a habit now, something he did every few days without being asked. His boots were dusty. His shirt was dark with sweat. He climbed the porch steps and stopped when he saw the mason jar on the rail. "Martha Hensley," Mercy said. "Apple butter. Looks like—" He picked up the jar and turned it in his hands. The light caught the glass, casting amber shadows across his fingers. "Pemberton came by yesterday," Mercy said. "While you were in the south field." Elias set down the jar. "What did he want?" "To talk about spring. The bank's offering seed credit. 6%. Same as the note. Pemberton offering fair terms." Elias shook his head slowly. "Never thought I'd see the day. The fire changed things. Or my wife did." Mercy felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She turned away, reaching for the coffee cups from earlier. "I ain't done nothing special. You stood up to him. You worked that bucket line till your hands bled. You gave away our harvest when we had nothing to spare." His voice was quiet. "That ain't nothing. That's everything." She did not answer. The cups clinked against each other as she carried them inside. That evening, they sat on the porch as the stars came out. 2 rocking chairs now. Elias had built the second one the week before, working in the barn after supper, not saying what he was doing until he carried it out and set it beside the first. They sat there together most nights now, watching the darkness settle over the valley. "I've been thinking about that sign," Elias said. Mercy looked at him. "The one at the gate. It just says Brooks Ranch. Been saying that for 20 years. He paused. Figured maybe it ought to say more. "Like what?" "Like Mercy and Elias, since it's yours too now." The words hung in the air between them. Somewhere in the hills, a coyote called one long note, then another. "That's a lot of letters to carve," Mercy said. "I got time." He turned to look at her. "We both do." She held his gaze. The lamplight from the window caught his face, softening the angles, warming the gray of his eyes. "All right. Then." He nodded once. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth, the first she had seen from him that wasn't touched by sadness. The first that reached his eyes. The next morning, Mercy walked up the hill. The grave stood where it had always stood, a wooden cross bleached white by sun and wind, the name carved deep into the wood. Clara Brooks, beloved wife, 1856 to 1879. Mercy knelt in the grass. She had brought flowers, goldenrod, and purple aster, picked from the field behind the barn. She laid them at the base of the cross, arranging them carefully, the yellow and purple bright against the pale wood. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said quietly. "I don't know if it works that way." The wind stirred the grass around her. "He's a good man. You knew that already, but he forgot it for a while, forgot himself." She sat back on her heels. "I just wanted you to know I'll take care of him. Best I can. For as long as I'm here." She stood. Her knees ached from kneeling in the cold grass. She brushed off her skirt and looked at the grave one last time. "I put flowers on her grave," she said aloud, to no one in particular. Hope that's all right. She'd have liked you. Mercy turned. Elias stood a few yards away, at the edge of the hill. She had not heard him approach. He was looking at the grave, at the flowers, at her. Stubborn recognizes stubborn, he said. Something broke loose in Mercy's chest. A sound came out of her strange, unfamiliar. It took her a moment to recognize it. She was laughing. The sound rose into the morning air and settled over the hills. And Elias's face changed, softened, and he laughed too. They walked back to the house together. The new sign hung at the gate now. Elias had finished it the night before, working by lamplight until the letters were carved deep and clean. Brooks Ranch, and below it, in fresh paint, Mercy and Elias. Mercy stopped to look at it. Her name, carved in wood, her name, on this land. You spelled it right, she said. Had plenty of practice. He stood beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. Wrote it out 100 times before I picked up the chisel. 100 times. Wanted to get it right. She looked at him, at this man who had sent a note to a stranger, who had offered everything he had left, who had learned to speak again because she was there to listen. You did, she said. You got it right. They walked through the gate and up the path to the house. The porch waited for them, 2 chairs, 2 cups, the lamp already glowing in the window. Inside, the bread she had baked that morning sat cooling on the table. The coffee pot stood ready on the stove. Small things, steady things, enough. Elias held the door for her. She stepped inside, and he followed, and the door closed softly behind them. Outside, the sun rose higher over the Arizona hills. The coyotes had gone quiet. The wind stirred the grass in the fields, bending it in waves that rolled toward the mountains. The sign at the gate swung gently on its chain, catching the light. Brooks Ranch, Mercy and Elias, home, if you stayed until the end. You already know what this story is about. Not the words I said, but the weight you carried while listening. That quiet ache when you recognized something in Elias or Mercy, something you have held yourself. Perhaps for years. Many of us have stood where they stood. We have been overlooked. We have been whispered about. We have loved someone and wondered if it was enough, or if we were enough. Some of us have rebuilt things with our hands when our hearts had nothing left to give, and perhaps you are still rebuilding now. That is all right. You do not need to find a reason for what you felt today. You do not need to explain it or share it or even understand it. Some things are allowed to simply rest the way a house rests after a long day, the way a field rests after harvest. The story is over, but what it stirred in you does not have to be resolved. It can stay. It can breathe. It can be yours. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening all the way through.